Okay. My name is Tamika, and I'm going to be trying my best to educate people about consumer law. I've been doing this for a while, proceeding with my own cases and having successful, I should say, how should I put it? Successful wins with my own cases. I'm currently in other ongoing cases, but I know a lot to be able to educate a lot of people about consumer law other than what other people are putting out there to be false narratives. So today, just if you're tuning in for the first time, make sure you hit the like or subscribe button so that you can get notified of when I have more content uploaded in regards to consumer law. So let's get started with this event. So let me try to find where my other posts are. Okay. Let's go back out of here. So I'm gonna go through all the posts that I posted on this channel, and I want to pretty much educate you guys on consumer law. I'm trying to see if I can bring it up. Without, no, let's not do that. I don't want no music in the background on this. I'm trying to blow it up so that you guys can see everything in detail here. Wish it was a way I can make this image bigger. That's what it is. I need to make the image a little bigger. But anyway, here's the best way I can do it. And hopefully you guys can see the content without the glare from the screen. So basically, this is the FCRA settlement blueprint, and you're going to have the document matrix. Sorry, keep moving the camera. So when you're trying to build your case, your own personal case, there are some things you need to know to build your case. You need to make sure that you have your before and after consumer reports. You need to make sure that you have all your dispute letters, including if you disputed online via the CRA portals, like Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You'll also want to include any priority mail receipts, proof of any credit denials, meaning that if during the time you were disputing whatever account it is that you were disputing, if you had any credit denials, you want to include that. And you want to also include rate increases for purchases or loans, like if you had to get a loan for a reason, like a car loan, an auto loan, or some type of business loan. Whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you have your proof that things were increased or whatever not. Also, you'll want any communication logs. So you want to make sure that you provide any logs of communication, such as emails, mail, letters that you received in the mail, anything of that nature, pretty much. So that's what you want to make sure you include. Okay, and we're gonna go to the the third post here, third image. So with this here, this is the damage calculation formula. So in order to calculate damages, you want to make sure that you have your credit denials and how much were they worth. Like if you were guaranteed a certain amount during your credit application, like let's say for a loan, if you try to apply for, let's say, a $10,000 loan and you were denied due to the information that was on your consumer report in regards to account collection or anything of that nature, you want to make sure you include that in your calculation formula. Also, the interest rate differences, like let's say that if that account wasn't reporting, what would your score be, or what would your interest rate be, I should say. And then what is your current interest rate with that account reporting? So you need to know, like, what would the interest rate be if that account wasn't there reporting negatively and affecting your credit. Also, any lost opportunities, and by that I mean like any lost opportunities of such as getting approval for the loan, or housing approval, or pre-approved for a house. That's considered a lost opportunity. Also, the time spent on research and postage. So postage mean like if you paid money to submit your disputes via priority mail to the CRAs, versus to using the what is that called, certified mail. Because now certified mail is not certified mail anymore. It's certified mail, but it's going to get there at the time regular mail gets there, or it could get lost. So I now don't use certified mail. I depend on priority mail more than I depend on certified mail. There is a difference in price between the two. Certified mail, you could probably be paying about $5.40, whereas priority mail with FedEx is about $10.95, depending on how many pages are in the dispute letter that you send, or it could be $10.45. It just all depends on the pages or what you're sending. Also, let's see, and then the time spent on research, that means if you had spent so many hours like studying like what was wrong with your account, the issues that were wrong, how many hours did you spend like researching how it's supposed to be reported, or researching what's supposed to be reported, just basic research. Like if you went to the library and spent 2 hours on a computer just to research this stuff, you need to kind of like calculate that in there too. Like you can pretty much, depending on how much you think is of worth, so you can start at $50 an hour, as a starting point, because you have to waste that type of time to research this information or whatever not. And also, time spent can also include credit monitoring. So if you paid a subscription to credit monitoring, let's say $15 to $40 a month for credit monitoring, and then you want to include that as well. Make sure you notate the date that you had to pull your report, and also the cost that you had to pay for the credit monitoring. So if you pay on the 10th of each month, you want to make sure that you calculate each month that you had to pay for credit monitoring, just to monitor your credit for any additional changes or modifications to that account at hand. So that's what I mean in this image here. So let's go to the next image. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4. So we should be here. Okay, proving emotional distress. So you want to make sure, like if you've been going to see your doctor, you want to make sure that you provide medical records and that your doctor is notating every time you come in, like what your issues are, notating that you're stressed or have anxiety about what's going on in your personal life, because sometimes doctors, they ask you how you've been since you last been there, and you can pretty much tell them like, oh, okay, I've been stressed, I've been dealing with this and dealing with that, and it's like causing me to lose sleep, it's causing me to stay up at night, I'm not eating right because this certain situation is really bugging me, and it seems like it's never ending, and it's causing me to be moody, distant from my family. I'm not as sociable as I was before all of this occurred. So you want to make sure your doctor knows what's going on in your life, because it can pretty much help support your case and pretty much show that it's affecting your daily living. So if you see a psychiatrist due to this, you want to have the dates of your sessions, the costs, if you have to pay for it, and including medication prescribed. Like you had medication prescribed for depression or anxiety by your therapist, you want to make sure that you have that documented in your medical records as well. The impact statements. The impact statements can come from friends, family, anyone that pretty much sees the impact in you or the changes in your life or your situation, or by seeing you daily, they can notice the impact that this issue is having on you. Witness statements can actually come from your own family or your spouse, your kids, your adult kids, of course. So that could actually speak on, how this is affecting you, how this issue is affecting you. So make sure you get documentations on all of that there. Let's move to the next slide. I'm hoping I'm providing some good information for you guys. A lot of people are intimidated or scared of consumer law, or just didn't have the right person teaching it to them. So I'm trying to be a vessel in a way. So your complaint structure, part 1, the header section, it would include the court name. The header section, you're going to include the court name, the parties, and the case number, and a jury demand. So when you're building your first complaint, you want to make sure that the header section is as it should be. You want to make sure you have the proper court name, you have the proper parties. Like if you're doing the suing, you want to make sure that you have the proper defendant and their information. And as far as case number, you can leave that part blank, because once you submit your complaint to the federal court, they will actually assign a case number to your complaint. Also, you want to always demand jury trial. So you want to always do that. Don't ever forget that, because you don't want the judge to make a decision on your case alone. You want the jurors to make a decision on your case, especially if you have a strong case. And that's the thing here that I'm trying to implement, that people make sure that they have a strong case. Don't just file a weak case. You want to make sure you stack your claims and have a strong case in this matter. Okay, let's proceed to the next slide here. Okay, let me try to blow it up as I can here. So this is going to be part 2 of the FCRA complaint structure. So you got the jurisdiction and venue. You want to make sure that you have the correct jurisdiction and venue. You got federal question, which for FCRA cases would be the 15 U.S.C. 1681. And then you got personal jurisdiction. That means if they mess with you in your state, or the incident or problem not resolved, I should say, occurred in your state. So let's just say that you live in the state of Wisconsin and you ended up having a collection on your report, and that collection company is licensed to collect the debt from consumers in the state of Wisconsin. That would be considered your personal jurisdiction right there, just because they mess with you in that state by trying to collect from you in that state. So that's what they mean there. So that means you can actually sue them there because they do business there. Proper venue is where you live. So that means where you live, that's your proper venue. Where you live or reside, or where they conduct business, that's that there. So that goes with the personal jurisdiction, and that goes with the proper venue. The amount in controversy, that's the magic number. So anything $75,000 or better, that would mean that you can file the case in federal court, and you are in the right venue and jurisdiction due to your claims. So your claims have to be $75,000 or better, or it has to be a federal question in order for you to file a case in federal court. I hope that makes sense with that. Okay. All right, the next slide I want to go through. Okay. FCRA complaint structure part 3. Parties, the plaintiff would be you. And what I mean by that is, that means you would list yourself as the plaintiff. The plaintiff is the person that's actually doing the suit, that's actually proceeding with suing another person. The defendant is actually the person that's being sued, and you want to make sure that you have the full legal entity name, where they do business at, like their principal address, and if they have a agent, you want to make sure that you list who their agent is and what their contact information is for their agent. So the defendant can also be a CRA, like the Consumer Reporting Agency. So you need to know that. And the furnisher would be like an original creditor or collection agency. So you want to know the status of that as well. And the business details, as what I mentioned, like you would need to know their principal address, the principal city and state and zip code. If they have an agent, you want to make sure you have the agent's or entity's name and their address. And if they have a phone number listed for themselves, you can, include that in your actual complaint as well. So that's part 3 of structuring your FCRA complaint. This can be done for FDCPA too, but at this moment, I'm just going over FCRA. Okay. Part 4. Let's try to bring that up so you can see. So part 4 of the FCRA complaint structure, you have your factual allegations, and that's where you want to make sure you have your credit reports or consumer reports that were issued, and that shows the issues that are on your consumer report. So like the balance, the payment history, the date that the account was closed, or if it has anything that's not correct about the report. You want to make sure, like, let's say you actually paid the account and it's not reflecting that it's been paid, it's reflecting as unpaid, or that the account's supposed to be open or closed, whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that you have your consumer report so that you can spot those issues and pretty much state the issues. The discovery timeline, like when did you discover the issues? That's what I mean by discovery timeline. Like when did you notice or discover the issues? And the history of disputes. So let's say you disputed in January, then you turn around and got results in February, and then you turn around and disputed in April and got results towards the beginning of June and so forth. So you want to keep a history of your disputes and what you disputed. Also, any response failures, like if they fail to do a proper investigation, you want to make sure that you notate that the consumer report or the reinvestigation results show the same thing that was reported when you first did your dispute. Also, let me move this here. Damages suffered, like you suffered a decreased credit score or damaging credit reputation due to the account reporting negatively, such as you could have not been able to get approved for a credit card, or not able to get a car loan for a specific amount, or some type of personal loan for whatever reason. So you want to make sure you can be able to state your damages as well. So this is part 4 of your FCRA complaint structure. So let me go to the next slide here. And that will be this one next. Okay. So, depending on who you sue, you must be under the correct consumer law. You must sue under the correct consumer law. So you have 15 USC 1681, and I think I put 1681. It's so small. EB. That's what it was. That's the CRA responsibility. The responsibilities such as Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. So one thing to make sure you always note that under EB means that it's the CRA's responsibility. Like they must create procedures, they must maintain their procedures that they create, they must follow their own procedures, and they must verify the accuracies of what's being reported. That's their job to do that. And why it matters, because the wrong defendant and the wrong section law or law code can be the wrong claim. So you want to make sure that you're suing under the proper consumer law. So for EB, just remember it's the CRA responsibility, such as Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And they're responsible for creating procedures, maintaining procedures, and following their own procedures. Excuse me. All right, let's go to the next slide here. All right. This is the FCRA complaint structure 5.2. CRA code 15 USC 1681 EB, continue. So, reasonable procedures, accuracy, duties, specific violations, resulting harm. So they have reasonable procedures that they have to follow. They have accuracy duties that they have to do, like they have to do a proper investigation. Specific violations is an improper violation. Not improper violation, improper investigation. Like they improperly disputed your, improperly investigated your dispute. Sorry, I'm kind of like get tongue twisted here. So that means that they did not properly investigate your dispute. You submitted a dispute, they came back verified within 2 days. That's an improper investigation, because there's no way they investigated everything in 2 days. Like, they actually reached out to the furnisher, which would be the original creditor or collection agency, and they verified all that in 2 days. There's no way they can do that. And the resulting harm is that it's still reporting, and that it's an improper investigation, because the investigation was done in 2 days. So make sure you notate, like, when you submit your disputes, if you do it online, and when you get the results back, if you do it online. You can also take screenshots as your exhibits to show that, okay, I disputed on this day, I provided this dispute reason, and this is the confirmation from this dispute. And then all of a sudden you get an email notification 2 days later saying that we have completed your disputes, please log in for your results. So keep a timeline of all of that stuff. Those are your exhibits to use in your complaint when you get ready to draft your complaint, and that will be your supporting evidence as well. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, here's the next slide here. Let me increase this just a little bit. Hopefully you can see. Okay. So FCRA complaint structure part 6. 15 USC I is also a CRA responsibility, such as Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And then you have to understand that 15 USC 16 section 1681I means investigation. It does not apply to the furnisher. So 1681I does not apply to the furnisher. It applies to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. It does not apply to the CFPB as well, because they are not a furnisher. So you got to understand that the CRAs are responsible for conducting a proper investigation. Usually it takes about 30 days. Sometimes it can take up to 45 days, but anything less than 2 days or less than 5 days is not really a investigation. That means they are pretty much parroting what they see already being reported, or parroting what the furnisher has already provided, instead of doing a proper investigation. They must also forward your disputes to the furnisher. They must review all relevant evidence. If you submit any proof of a paid account, they must provide that to the furnisher as well during the dispute process. And they must send results of your investigation to you in writing. Now, in writing, a lot of people think that it has to be by USPS mail. It doesn't even have to be by mail. It can be by if they send you an email saying your dispute investigation is ready for review. That's considered in writing, because they emailed you to let you know that they have finished the investigation. So technically they have submitted it to you in writing. So just so you know that. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's see here. I think this is it. One more. I gotta go down one more. Okay. Continuation of 1681, 15 USC 1681I. So you got to remember it's investigation duties. There's a response timeline that has to be met. You got to make sure that with the documentation, you got to make so if there's any issues with documentations, you want, like, if they didn't document, let's say they didn't document that they reached, like, they have to, like, document when they reach out to you and say we're needing more time to finish your investigation and so forth like that. So just keep all documentations. And if there's any, also it means, like, if the documentation still documents the same issues as well, you got to make sure that if they complete your investigation and you're still seeing the same thing that was reporting before the disputes, which is continue to be reporting, you want to make sure that you document that as well. Continued errors, like if they call themselves, like, not correcting the errors or modifying certain parts of the account, that doesn't mean they really did an investigation, because sometimes they switch the late payment days around, or sometimes they add different dates which are not the actual last payment date, or may not be the actual closing date. They switch things around, so just to make it seem like they did something, and then they'll say they've updated or modified something within the account, and that could be what they've done. So make sure you compare the before report to the after report, or to the investigation results. Make sure you compare the two to each other. The key trigger: consumers must dispute directly with the CRA, not with the furnisher and not with a third party. So you have to remember, in order to trigger the next claim, you have to make sure you dispute with the CRA only, not the furnisher, not the third party. So that's what 1681 involves. I'm just shortening it down just to not to have to say the whole 15 USC section 1681I. So just know that when I say 1681I, I really mean 15 USC section 1681I. So I just broke that down a little bit. I'm just pretty much going over everything that I posted on my media and within YT, just for clarity and to add anything extra that I didn't state before. All right, next slide. Okay, here you go. You have to have proof needed to support your claim. Like, you got to have your dispute letters, the screenshot of your disputes to the CRAs, prior to mailed receipts, the CRA response letters, or the investigation results. Common violations, like no real investigation performed, parroting what the furnisher already stated, ignoring evidence presented with the dispute, and missing deadlines of completing the dispute in a timely manner. Like, meaning that if they didn't complete their investigation in 30 days, or if they said that they need additional time to investigate your dispute, and all of a sudden it took up to 60 days, that's like missing a deadline, because it shouldn't take that long to actually do an investigation, a proper investigation on the account for what you stated was inaccurate or incomplete. So you want to make sure that you're following the timeline and make sure they're meeting their deadlines as well. So let's go to the next slide. Alrighty. So, FCRA complaint structure part 7. This is the gold mine right here. Like, this is the actual money maker here. So, 15 USC 1681 S-2. That's a furniture territory. And what that means, a furniture is a bank, a credit card company, auto lenders, or collection agency, but not the CRAs. So common moving parts such as the furniture duties, notice requirements, correction failures, and pattern practice. So furnished duties, like the furnishers have a duty. They have to investigate. So when the CRA send them something stating that you're disputing something in regards to the account, the CRAs are responsible for forwarding that dispute to the furnishers. The furnishers are responsible for doing the investigation on whatever it was that the consumer is pointing out to be an issue, an item of dispute. The notice requirements, they're required to supply you with notice, any type of notice that pertains to certain accounts. So let's say for like, if you want to know, let's say, what can I use for notice? Let's say for like repossessions, like with that there, they have to provide the notice that they sold the car at an auction and that what the deficiency is. So that's like a notice requirement. Correction failures. So let's say you notice that they didn't include a payment that was made and they're listing it as no data, or they're listing it as 30 days late. You want to make sure you provide that information to them. If you have proof, like statements that show that you've made a payment and you supplied it to them and they did not correct the issues, then that's what that is there. And a pattern practice, that means that if they continued after the first dispute, the second dispute, and maybe if you disputed a third time, if they fail to correct the issue and there's a pattern going on in regards to the account reporting in the same fashion and manner for months and months and months on, then that's considered a pattern practice there. That means they're willfully and negligently harming your credit because they're not fulfilling their duties and doing what they're supposed to do as a furnisher. So that's what that means. So let's go to the next slide. We got 2 more slides to cover, and that will be it for this YouTube presentation that I'm doing. Okay. Here, this is 1692, has 2 parts, important parts. You got 15 USC 1681 S-2A, and then you have 1681 S-2B. Now, 1681 S-2A is the accuracy duties, the completeness duties, but it's not a private right of action, meaning you can't sue under 1681 S-2A. But there's no worries though, because you can dispute to the CRA first. The CRA tells the furnisher that you're disputing an item of information or a segment or information, like let's say the payment history or the balance, something to that nature. And then you get a 1681 S-2B claim. And now you can sue under it. And why? Because when you get an S-2C, S-2 1681 S-2B, B claim, that means you can sue them under it because you've actually did your part. You disputed the account with the CRAs first. The CRAs were responsible to notify the furnisher, and that's how you get the 1681S-2B claim. So with that being said, under the 1681S-2B, the investigation duties, like the furnisher is responsible for investigating whatever the issue is about the count that the consumer points out. This is where your money is at. You must, and they must do an investigation after the CRA notice, and they must fix any known errors. So that means like you submit your dispute, the CRAs forward a dispute to them, to the furnishers or the banks or creditors or whatever they may be. And then their job is to investigate after they've been notified by the CRA, and then they must fix any known errors. Now, if they don't fix any known errors and they send you back your reinvestigation results stating that the account has been verified, that's your claim right there. So if you dispute 3 times, that's 3 different disputes, that's 3 different violations. That's it. You basically stacking your claim. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your disputes of how to tally your violations. So for each dispute equals a different violation for how many times they do it. All right, let's go to the last slide. All right. Here is the last slide. 1681S-2. Furnisher duties, review all information. They're supposed to review all the information that's been submitted to them for the dispute. They're supposed to report the updated results. They're supposed to fix any mistakes and update the account status to the current date that the investigation was done. Like, so if you submit a dispute and you notice that the status was last updated, let's say in 2019, but you send a dispute in 2025 and you see that it still shows 2019, that means they did not do a proper investigation. That means they pretty much parroted or kept the same information that was reporting since the last status update. So to make sure you pay attention to that as well. And you got to dispute with the CRAs first. Always document everything. Always save your responses that you receive from the CRA. So if they send you a response via email or by mail, like your reinvestigation results, you want to make sure you save that. You might want to kind of like scan the stuff with your phone or a scanner and keep it in a file so that if it ever comes to a time where you need to utilize these as exhibits in your complaint, you'll have them, and make sure they're dated, and make sure you properly document what they are, like what, when you received it and what they are. So if they're reinvestigation results, you want to document it as that. If they're a new copy of your consumer report that you pulled, so basically let's just say you pulled your consumer report in April and then you decide to pull it in July. You want to make sure that you notate it as that, so that you can have proper documentation of what's being corrected or what the issues are that you're disputing. Also, you want to keep track of your what I'm trying to say. Keep track of your entire process. So the entire process from the beginning to the end, you want to keep track of it, because you'll need this when you get ready to draft your complaint. So after this video, I'll be doing another video, but it's going to be more so I'm going to be going into some other details. So hope this information has reached someone that it can benefit them in their own process with learning consumer law. But I'm just showing you guys the basis so that you can be able to do this on your own and learn the same way I learned. So I'm what you call a bookie or a bookworm or someone that stays doing research and reading and all of that stuff. So that's kind of like I've been doing this since 2018. So I came a long way. So I learned a lot. So hopefully I'm helping you to start your foot forward in your adventure and cleaning up your issues with your credit issues, I should say, in your endeavors. Thank you for staying with me on this video, and I hope you get some valuable information out of the information that was presented.